Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti. In this opportunity, I would like to explain about history of English literature. A timeline literary periods. The first is Old English literature. The second is medieval literature. The third is Renaissance and Reformation literature. And the last is Revolution and Restoration literature. First, I will explain to you about Old English. The characteristics of the era. In this period, the spreading of Christianity in the end of the 6th century, monastics became the center of science. Old English literature can be classified into categories. The first is literature was brought by Germanic tribes, in which from its mother country in European continental. The second is literature was created after the Germanic tribes stayed in the British Isles. Both of the categories can be saved in the writing form because the spreading of Christianity in the British Isles. The monastic who gathered and wrote the products of the literature, so that the literature that was written related to the influence of Christianity. The next about the works and the author in that era. The major works in this period is Beowulf. It is a poem that consists of 3,000 lines. Beowulf can be said as kind of epic. Beowulf tells a story about the experiences and action of heroism. A young hero that is Beowulf. Beowulf is an expression of the Germanic feeling that related to war, the ruins of a city, and the terrible sea, but it's fascinating, and the author of this poem is unknown. The next about medieval literature. The characteristics of the era. In the Middle English period, or medieval era, began with the death of the King of England named Edward the Confessor in 1066. Since the death of the king, there was the struggle for English throne because King Edward didn't have children. One of the kings who fought over the throne was William, Duke from France. In one moment, King William with his army landed on the south coast of England, and in the end, he won the war in Hastings. Around the end 1066, William was officially became the King of England. William's victory as a King of England led to influx of Normans to England, which aimed to dominate the place of the British nobles. It made Normans to become upper class and the British nobles become lower class. This happened because Normans didn't learn English, but still using French, so that there was a place with the Anglo-Norman dialect. This situation happened until the middle of the 13th century. At that time, the British nobles and French nobles had decision till a split occurred that caused the British nobles losing all of their proprietary in France. This dissension became more terrible in the 100-Year War. This situation made the Norman dialect disappear slowly, and English began to spread around the upper class. The English began to recover and grow back around the 14th century. It also became a single language in England, but the English was already different from Old English, which the original vocabulary changes became the loan language of France, and also the grammar had changed. So it's called the Middle English or the English Modern. In the Middle English period, literature that was created in England using French, because at that time French was the language of the upper class. The characteristics of the work in that era. Creator of literary works in English can only get spiritual motivation. They didn't get additional income provided. So the literary works only traded for lower class. They created religious literary works using the language that only understood by the surrounding environment. The literary works that created by minister was taken based on the gospel. Another literary work is fable, which contains about life lessons such as the nightingale, and also literary works which created by minister not only contains about religious but also contains about a legend. In this period, ballads became the genre in this era, and the English literary work were written in French. The characteristics of the work, French literary became the most famous and became primary language in literature in that era. And the drama in that era not only showed the story about religious, but also accompanied with funny scenes. And also it told about a story about the life of saints that named miracles and story from Gospels. The next about the famous author and the masterpiece of medieval era. The first is Geoffrey Chaucer, who is a poem writer. The most famous of his literary work titled Canterbury Tales. This literary work served with realistic and also humorous. So it can describe about types of people at that time. Realism became a new thing in Chaucer poems. The character of Chaucer's poems titled Canterbury Tales, usually the ordinary people. It is different from English literary work at that time, which using the character from the great people in the world of imagination. And also, according to another expert, explained that Canterbury Tales by Chaucer are similar to Giovanni Boccaccio II, Decameron in Italy, which both of them are literary work in short model. The second is King Arthur. The story of Arthur titled Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is the most popular story because using beautiful language, and also there is a poem titled Clean's Passion and the pearl narrated about sadness of a father when his daughter died. The third is Renaissance and Reformation literature. The characteristics of the era. In this era is marked by the formation of Protestant alliance that by marrying Edward, King Henry's son, to the infant Mary, Queen of Scots. And the social conditions in this period is marked by increasing population in England, price rocketed, rains followed, and this period is the development of new industrial, agricultural, and commercial ventures, so that this era can be called the early modern era. In this period, humanism has a role as cultivation of intimacy that is the powerful for the creation of English literature that the simultaneous impact of the flourishing continental cultures modified effect of humanism. And then this period is denoted by the development of intellectual. It is the rise of modern mechanical technologies that to create the scenic wonders of the court mosque. The discoveries of astronomers and also explorers were drawing the cosmos in a way. The other of the characteristic in this era is marked by the rise of the religious revolutions, and the race for cultural development in this era is marked by the creation of a class of educated diplomats, statesmen, and officials, and to dignify their court by making it a fount of cultural and political patronage. The Renaissance are called as Reformation era. So, what is the relationship between Renaissance and Reformation in English literary history? The relationship between Renaissance and Reformation in English literature history can be seen by the literary work at that time, in which there are many ideas in the Renaissance era in the European monarchs such as humanism ideas, ancients of Greek and Roman literature. The idea spread and was introduced in the European monarchs including English. They were adopted by others in the Reformation era as in humanism ideas that influenced English literature and the glory of literature was begun. So, we move to the characteristics of the works in this era. In this period, we can be denoted by the revival of literary and societal life with tensions, uncertainties, and competing versions of order and authority, religion and status, sex and the self. The drama was affected by the intermingling of history, tragedy, and political morality. And the characteristic of the work in this period, we can be seen the lessons by Sydney and Spencer, in which they cultivate melodic smoothness and graceful refinement in the lyrics on sonnets. In this period, the sonnets and lyrics describe the tradition of the era that represented as Elizabethan, but the coexistence of other poetic styles make the picture is complex. In this era, the form of the language in the works is the satire that is related to the complaint. The notable examples by Daniel, the complaint of Rosamond, and Shakespeare, the rape of Lucrece, in which are dignified and tragic elements in subtle verse. Well, the next about the famous author and the masterpiece of the Renaissance era. The first is William Shakespeare. He is a supreme genius. His career is begun from 1589 to 1613. His first published poems are Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece. Shakespeare's plays are Titus Andronicus. That is the first full-length tragedy of his play. Then his play is Hamlet. And in addition, his work is the romantic comedies such as The Merchant of Venice, As You Like It, and Twelfth Night. All comedies by Shakespeare represent a belief in the positive, health-giving power of play. So, his masterpiece is Hamlet, and Twelfth Night can also As You Like It, because that influenced English literature. The second famous author is Sir Thomas More, and his work that influenced the Reformation era is Utopia. The last is Revolution and Restoration literature. The characteristics of the era. The English Revolution is a revolutionary struggle in which occurred the civil war between the King's army and Oliver Cromwell's parliamentary force in 1640. In this era, the bourgeois restored the monarchy, and also the son of exiled Charles I, his Charles II, returned from exile in France in 1660. And the Revolution and Restoration era went in 1620 until 1690. At that time, Charles II ascends the throne that became the king of monarchy in England. It's because Charles I was imprisoned in the Tower of London and was executed on Tower Hill. This era religious policy replied so that mostly the creation of literary work is dominated by elements of religion, as in the Bible that is known as the Book of All Perfection. The next about the famous author and the masterpiece of the era. The famous author in that era is John Milton, and his masterpiece is a poem that titled Paradise Lost. That is the effort to uphold the virtues of patience and of enlightened learning. It became the famous literary work at the time. Paradise Lost is Milton's achievement in his work. Furthermore, Milton creates a series of pamphlets that presents the case for a free and also emphatically Protestant commonwealth that would preserve civil and religious liberty. The next section is the lesson learned from the reference. So, based on the explanation of each era, it shows that what happened in the previous era can influence the next era, like the influence of religion, politics, social conditions, the development of intellectual and science. In that, each era becomes the concern in creation of literary work, so that the literary work can be said as a reflection of the reality in the life. And by the literary work, the author can convey the morality and criticism in the society. So, that's all from me. Thank you for listening. May all those we have shared be beneficial for all of us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.